Hello lovely people, my name is Emma and I was not prepared to make a video today. To be honest, I wasn't going to have a video out this week. I'm very busy. I haven't done my makeup, I'm still drinking a Costa. And you'll probably notice I've deliberately tightened the frame so that you can't see the mess outside of it. But I thought it was important to let you guys know that, according to two of, if not the most powerful governments in the world, I am basically a terrorist. If you follow me on Blue Sky, you'll already be aware of this, but the previous government introduced some police powers to stamp down on peaceful protest. Immediate concern, obvious red flag, international organisations, Amnesty International, everyone's saying, hey, this is a threat to, the freedom to protest, the freedom of speech, of expression. Not democratic, very dangerous precedent, and just generally bad move. For a while, we were waiting and hoping for the next government, a different political party, a theoretically more left-leaning party, to reverse this bill and restore our full right to protest, which is a human right. Instead, they have proposed yet more restrictions that threatens our right to protest, which is protected by UK law as well as enshrined in multiple international laws. Police have arrested hundreds, at this point it may well be over 1,000, peaceful protesters campaigning against the genocide in Gaza. Particularly of note, I suspect, is the fact that people have been campaigning against the deliberate loopholes in our law that allow us to still provide arms to Israel. When this latest police powers idea was announced recently, I was so very furious that I did the sensible thing. I didn't do the Paul and Morgan thing and just hit record on my camera and record a big angry rambly video, which this already threatens to be. I did the sensible thing and wrote a lot of angry notes on my phone. So at some point I will explain this whole thing in detail because I know that people are interested. A lot of you aren't from the UK and want to understand what the heck is going on around here. So I will talk about the protest bills, this Israel military supplies loophole and things like that. All of that nonsense. I will compile a video. I will probably script that from my notes with lots of helpful information so that it comes out as a coherent thing and not just an angry rant. But the short version essentially is hundreds and hundreds of people who are protesting the genocide in Gaza, who are pro-Palestine protesters, have been arrested by police, notably a huge amount over the age of 60, the blind, the disabled. You might have seen floating around the video footage of these terrorists.
So let us stand.
This person
As we face the coming storm.
is chap in the wheelchair.
Oh my God, the first terrorist they have arrested here. Look at him. Dangerous terrorist here, madam, are you?
I've never attended a protest in my life. I'm here because this is my line.
I think it's important that as a Jewish person, I'm here today to show that there is no contradiction. In fact, there is a connection between being concerned, deeply concerned about the violence committed towards the congregation of Heaton Synagogue in Manchester and being concerned about the violence committed against the whole Palestinian population.
Are you able to walk, sir, or would you like us to carry you to you?
I'm not going to.
You're not going to walk?
There's a convoy of police wagons there. They're picking old people up in their 70s.
Good people! I'm an OAP! I'm 73 years old! I've never hurt a fly in my life!
Meanwhile, far-right protests, organised by Stephen Yaxley, aka Tommy Robinson, in which people have been shouting racist abuse, probably more literally terrorising immigrants, punching police officers and so on, those have gone largely unscathed. The volume of peaceful Palestine protesters arrested compared to the just silence in these far-right racist rallies is, let's just say, very worrying. So being a pro-Palestine protester in the UK makes you, according to the government, according to the police, basically a terrorist. Imagine my joy, imagine my surprise and glee at knowing that my counterpart skeptics of religion and particularly Christian nationalism in the US are, according to Donald Trump and his government, also now basically terrorists. We're all in this together. A presidential memo has been published from the White House. I believe it was technically a a national security presidential memorandum, if that helps make things any clearer. Basically in line with Trump's stance that left-wing extremism is responsible, A, specifically for Charlie Kirk's death, and B, just for all terror problems in general in the US. You probably could analyse the data and find, you know, if there's a particular place on the political spectrum that inspires more hatred. I suspect it would be the far right, who is more likely as a group to inspire terror. That would be my guess. Regardless, I don't think it's beneficial to paint a side of the political spectrum. To in a sense, when Trump spoke after that assassination, I found it quite repulsive, to be honest, that he used that as an opportunity to just blame the left. Let's just read this memo together. There are common recurrent motivations and indicia uniting this pattern of violent and terroristic activities under the umbrella of self-described anti-fascism. Anti-fascism is in quotation marks. The idea of people using Antifa, anti-fascism as like a negative term is, to me, it's a bit like when people say woke or social justice warrior, meaning it in a negative way, and you're like, do you not want to oppose fascism? It's self-explanatory with Trump because he would prefer fascism. He idolizes dictators, and he is open about that. So no one should be surprised, but people should be more concerned. Common threads animating this violent conduct include anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, and anti-Christianity. Support for the overthrow of the United States government, which is literally what Trump and his followers did on January 6th. So I guess Trump's a terrorist. Extremism on migration, race, and gender. There's no indication of what that means because that is so incredibly vague. But if I was reading that as a completely neutral party, I would think that extremism on migration, race, and gender would be people on the far right being racist and anti-immigrant and sexist. Like, that's what I would read that as. So, I don't know. Some of this feels like a bit of a self-own to me. And hostility towards those who hold traditional American views on family, religion, and morality. People who criticise traditionalism, and I think traditionalism is an entirely flawed premise myself, so it's another check on the terrorism list for me. People who are hostile towards traditional American views. That could be interpreted in basically any way. It could be interpreted as, and the fact that this is Trump's government saying it means that it's probably most likely to be intended to be interpreted as people who are critical of our heteronormative, patriarchal, old-fashioned societal values, our white Christian nationalist views. People who are hostile towards those are basically terrorists and responsible for terror action in the United States, which is categorically untrue, but that hasn't affected anything else Trump has ever said. The memo also says this: the Attorney General may recommend that any group or entity whose members are engaged in activities meeting the definition of domestic terrorism merits designation as a domestic terrorist organisation. This is such a direct mirror of Palestine Action being designated a terrorist group in the UK that I wonder if Trump didn't just see that and think, we should copy that for Antifa. So I'm reading about this on The Fire, which is the foundation... Let me get this right. The Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression. They make a note here that there's no process. For example, they mention the FTO, a process for identifying foreign terrorist organizations. It makes it sound like there's a process for designating a domestic terrorist organization, but there isn't. The domestic terrorist organization definition proposed here has no legal safeguards and no clear significance. It's completely made up. It seems an organisation so designated will receive extra scrutiny from the federal government until it pleases the Attorney General to remove them from the list. Donors, speakers, employees, and members of these organisations will all have their speech chilled for as long as the executive branch sees fit. It's hard not to compare this to the Hollywood blacklist during McCarthyism. Here's an important point too, that Fire says, we have already seen orders like this get misused. And this is a great statement, so I'm just going to read this out as well. A missive from the most powerful man in the world carries so much force that it is, inevitably, a blunt instrument. When the president uses his pen to take aim at anything, it will cause a chilling effect. They use as an example when President Trump issued an executive order on gender ideology that prohibited federal funding to programs that suggest that gender is a spectrum. Texas A&M cancelled an annual drag show, and the National Endowment for the Arts reviewed applications for their consistency with the order. Neither of these outcomes were obvious on the face of the order. What will the overreactions to this new memo look like? Because I'm not required to be quite as careful as this organisation is in my speech, I would posit that in both situations, both that previous executive order they use as an example and this presidential memo, I would posit that Trump intends for them to be misused. I would argue that it is not misusing them in the sense that Trump intends for any organisation that he doesn't approve of, any activity that he doesn't approve of, any speech that he doesn't approve of, to be chilled. I would say that that is probably the point. So yeah, just thought I should let you guys know that I'm basically a terrorist. Probably so are you. It's a bit awkward, isn't it? On the other hand, as I pointed out, having essentially two governments, the two major, two of the most major governments in the world, say that your ideas are so powerful that you're basically a terrorist, and the government seeks to control your words because they're that important. That makes me feel kind of powerful. That makes me feel kind of strong. Just like when people try to use social justice warrior as a negative, I think we should embrace the fact that that's kind of badass. I think we should take some solace and some pride from the fact that the way that we speak and the things that we talk about are so important, are so threatening to a regime that needs change, that we're being targeted. It's bad. It's a terrifying state of the world. We're kind of living in the fascist dystopia. It's a terrifying state of affairs for our freedom of speech and our right to protest. And forgive me being farcical, this might be genuinely frightening for a lot of you, and I appreciate that. But what I will say is that we should take solace from this, that we are doing the right thing. And I'm going to continue to protest Israeli war crimes and the UK government using loopholes to allow us to continue supplying arms to Israel. And I expect my friends across the pond are going to continue to criticise Christian nationalism in the USA. Because every person on this silly little planet has the right to protest, has the right to freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and we should bloody well use it. And this is the situation where it most needs to be used. In other news, if you want to cozy up for the winter, I've made this jumper. Got a little yellow on the bottom and the sleeves. You can get this at my shop. I'll leave a link down below. I'm putting together some winter warmers, some woolies, to keep you cozy through the news, through the chilling news. I've also got this throw blanket, which I think is super cute and cozy. I'm going to design another one, I think, that's maybe blue with yellow duckies. So there's another more sort of colourful option. But yeah, oh man, this is actually really cozy. So check these out and continue to support me in my terrorist-adjacent activities. Thank you so much. Super big thank you. Shout out to anyone who has bought anything from my store. Any of you guys who support me on Patreon, or if you have membership here. You've probably heard creators mention this lately, but YouTube views are kind of all over the place. Something's happening. Plus AI slop is threatening to destroy the entire internet, but especially creators probably first. And with all this anti-free speech stuff going on, you just never know. You never know what is playing a part in basically affecting your views and your advertisers and your income as a creator. So super appreciate everybody who supports me by watching and commenting, and especially if you support me in other ways. So thank you so much. And I must of course give a big old shout out to my giant chickens and colossal quackers over on Patreon. Especially Conla. Goddamn terrorist Conla. Have yourselves a very lovely week. I will see you really soon. Syrupy.